Welcome to No Limits to Success, the podcast that empowers you to break barriers and achieve your dreams. Hosted by Les Moir, this show brings you inspiring conversations with trailblazers who redefine success in business and life. Les interviews guests ranging from startup founders to industry titans, uncovering their hard-won wisdom, innovative strategies, and the mindset that propelled them to extraordinary heights. Get ready to unlock your potential and discover that in the world of success, there truly are no limits.
Well, today we are thrilled to have Luke Irwin on, the founder of and head of Aegis Cybersecurity, joining us in the podcast for No Limits to Success. Over the 2 decades of experience, he has worked with the Royal Australian Navy and Education Queensland, and he has a wealth of knowledge in cybersecurity. In 2023, he launched Aegis Cyber and has helped businesses, small to medium enterprises, strengthen their security posture. Luke holds some of the highest certifications in cybersecurity, and he's passionate about educating small and medium-sized businesses on the risks that they face. Excuse me. We are excited to dive into his insights and how to stay protected in an ever-evolving digital landscape. Welcome, Luke, and very happy to have you on. Certainly a really pertinent topic at the moment, because cybersecurity, I think, is overlooked a lot of the time by small businesses. But I guess my first question would be, what actually inspired you to start Aegis, and talk a little bit about your background and where you started with your security, where you started working there, please.
Well, yeah, thanks, Les. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. So as we said earlier, I started off doing IT back when I was still in the military. So my first foray into tech was I was responsible for the Navy's warship maintenance database platform. So just a little bit sensitive in what it can do and hold. And after I left the military, I basically worked my way up through various organisations until I ended up running the Education Queensland Enterprise Operations team. And after doing that for about 5.5 years, it was time to go out and start working with smaller organisations, where I made the active choice to focus more on security-focused roles, because that's what I've always loved doing. Back when I was still with the military and when I was getting out, the field of cybersecurity didn't really exist as we know it today. If you wanted to do security back then, you did firewalls and antivirus. Right. And that was about it. And it's changed a lot since then because the threats have changed. So yeah, over the last almost decade since leaving education, worked through the various firms, and yeah, January 2023, I spun up Aegis Cybersecurity because I wanted to step out of being an employee and running my own company and see how that goes. And I also wanted to try and have a bigger impact to try and lift the bar around organizations' general security posture, because some of these risks the risks that are out there and the damage it causes are quite severe. There are business-ending events that occur on a regular basis because not having the right cybersecurity protections in place. And this doesn't mean you're spending tens of thousands of dollars of stuff. A lot of it can be the right configuration and the right training with a lot of stuff you've already got. It's just knowing what to do, and also who to speak to.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think that's one thing, especially in small business. Small business owners are often scrambling and just not making ends meet, but trying to keep up with demand. And if they're growing, or that it's to this point that they haven't got excess time to think about a lot of these things sometimes. And what goes under the radar a lot of the time is the threats to their business.
Yes.
So you said that in the last 10, 15 years, threats in cybersecurity have changed, and there are new types of threats. But please let's talk about that for a minute.
So when I'm having these sort of conversations with organizations, we want to understand what the risk and threat profile of the organization is. So if we pick just let's say you're a standard professional services firm, odds are, unless you're winning big contracts and you're in the press and you're doing press releases and you're in the trade journals and going to conferences, if you're making a name for yourself, then there is a chance that you will become an active target. Now, what I mean by that is the bad guys also read trade journals. They also read the press. They also read your LinkedIn updates going, hey, we just picked up a $20 million contract with government department XYZ. Congratulations. You've just basically lit a giant beacon saying we're a target. And that's not a bad thing because you need to promote that to keep the growth of your business going. You want to champion your own success. Don't begrudge anyone for doing it. It's what you should be doing. It's like marketing 101. But it means that the bad guys are now looking at you. The other part is if you're chugging along and doing that, you're more likely to become the victim of like an unstructured or unplanned attack. And that's the equivalent of throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks. And that's what hits most organizations because they haven't even got the basic protections configured. That means that for all intents and purposes, the wall's now coated in Teflon. You need that. If it hits, it needs to basically bounce off, do nothing, and just move on. If the bad guys can get a foothold, that's when they start to launch more advanced techniques and attacks because a lot of these threat actor groups or hacking groups, whatever you want to call them, they are managed to a corporatized structure. They have KPIs, they have metrics. You must breach X amount of organizations per week. You must issue X amount of ransoms per week. You must collect X amount of ransoms per week. And it's all a commission-based incentive
more structured
structure.
than a small business, yeah.
Yeah, like they are highly corporatized. There are referral partners, there are affiliates, like they have everything that exists in the world of corporate structuring exists in the world of criminal cybercrime structuring because it works to
Business
create
and big
results.
money, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the money involved in cybercrime is absurd. It is a horrifyingly large number. It starts with the T.
Yes. Yeah.
So it dwarfs the GDP of many nations. And the reason it works is because a lot of organizations haven't taken the time or treated with the seriousness cybersecurity actually needs. It's a risk that exists to an organization. And it is actually, as a director of a company or director of an organization, you actually have an obligation to address that risk. The challenge is that, so as you said, so many small businesses, they're treading water, they're trying to keep their head above water. It's just not a profile. It's not part of the major profile they're looking at. They're going, I need to get more clients. I need to increase that. I need to sort out a hiring problem. So cybersecurity, because it's not an ever visible risk,
Yes.
it doesn't maintain the forefront of mind. And one of the challenges that exists with cybersecurity and IT, because they're related but different fields, is you've got the old paradox of everything's broken. Why do we pay you guys?
Yep.
Everything's working. Why do we pay you guys?
Yes.
So it's that lovely paradox. If everything is working perfectly, then that's what you want to be happening. Ideally, from an idealized cybersecurity perspective, we want you to be telling us about dodgy emails that make it through so we can modify some configurations. But if stuff gets through, then we've got a problem. And that doesn't mean your cybersecurity or IT team has failed, because the quantity and type and sophistication of attacks is always increasing. There are some
and
emails
anything that they adapt as quickly as something new comes out, right? Yeah, that's it.
Well, everyone's heard of ChatGPT, wonderful product, really supports some interesting ideas. Well, the best way to write a phishing email nowadays, so an email to trick you into clicking on something, there's actually entire GPTs on the darknet to support creating fraudulent emails. And I've been sent copies of some of them, and I have a hard time telling them apart. They are that well crafted, and it's not reasonable to expect somebody who doesn't have my background to not fall for it.
Yes. Yep.
So,
and that's where I think like we look at AI and how powerful it is for us. There's also dark uses for it. You know, there's always going to be it's a two-edged sword.
There's already AI supported attacks going on where to basically make it easier to break in organizations. I think it was IBM has just developed an internal AI tool that supports their penetration testers to reduce the time on what it takes. So that is a human-controlled AI that just basically reduces the effort, time, cost to deliver those services.
Yes.
Now, if they can do that to deliver defensive-centric services, it's not a big leap to make it aggressive.
No, Oh, that's it. You've got the ability to use it for good or bad. It's like any
Yeah, exactly.
um
Yeah.
okay. Um so just I guess the next question would be, for example, you're talking about emails. What generally you've had
Yep.
with your experience with a small business, what would their experience be?
Okay. So most of the attacks come in nowadays by way of email. It's called a BEC, or business email compromise. You can put in the world's best technologies at the perimeter, like top-notch firewalls, all these other tools and stuff. All it takes is Bob from accounts to click on a link, and you've now got a problem. But there's a bit more to it than that. So one of the best things you do is train your staff.
Mhm.
Security awareness training. It has the best return, in my opinion, the best return on investment for making sure bad things don't happen to your organization. And that means you get someone in, they run a workshop for an hour or two, and they basically go, this is what you look for on a dodgy email. This is what you look for on a dodgy attachment. Here's are all the other things, like another classic one that's increasing as well, is SMS scams. How many people have received an email or an SMS from Linked saying your toll is overdue? It's like, is it really? But again, that's another form of, they're trying to
It's
solicit.
almost daily for me.
Yeah, precisely. They're trying to solicit information. So the first thing you want to do is security awareness training for your staff. That is one of the best things you can do.
Right.
Then if you focus specifically on email security, email's a double-edged sword. It's a wonderful communication tool, increases transact or decreases transaction times and engagement times, all those other lovely things. But unless it's been set up correctly, it's an avenue and a vehicle to allow someone to impersonate you. There's a set of 3 technologies that can underpin email security. And without going to the nitty gritty, one's called SPF, one's called DKIM, and one's called DMARC. They basically allow the receiver of the email to query your email system and another system called DNS to verify you are allowed to say you're sending from that organization, and you are sending from an address that is allowed to send for that organization. There are some organizations, when I run tests, my first test is I send an email to the person as that person from a third-party service. And if it makes it through, it tells me how their email is secured. Now, if I can do that to them, that means someone can impersonate them to their vendors, their clients, their collaborators, everything else like that. It takes me about 5 minutes to run that test. And most organizations don't have it well set up. The first 2, your IT team should be able to set it up in about 15 to 20 minutes. And there's no ongoing cost. The last one, DMARC, there is an ongoing cost for, because you've got to have a service to monitor it. But do those 3 things, and you've essentially protected your brand and your reputation from an email perspective.
Yep.
The other thing to call out there is multi-factor authentication is your friend. I'm aware
Yes.
it's annoying. Suck it up. Because
There's
the
a reason
reason,
it's come out, right?
yeah, exactly. The reason multi-factor works. So, Les, as an example, let's say I managed to work out your password.
Yep.
And let's also assume that, like a lot of other people, you may have reused that password in multiple locations, because people do that because humans aren't great at remembering 40 different complex passwords. So, one, use a password manager. But the multi-factor, if I break your password, or through brute force or guessing, or I steal it from somewhere, I could be in Thailand or Abu Dhabi or France or anywhere and log in as you.
Yes.
The multi-factor is a validation that it is you behind the screen making that request. MFA is one of the strongest things you can do to improve your overall security, but I'll call that, it is not a silver bullet that fixes all security. There are sophisticated attacks that they're called a man-in-the-middle type attack, and they'll take the multi-factor code your computer receives, and the bad guy will get that. But again, if you're playing in that space, we need to have a very different conversation. So a lot of what you want to do is you're just trying to lift the bar to essentially just call it the high tide mark, and that'll stop 80% of the attacks coming through. If you're working in financial services or medical or working with kids data or in R&D, then you need to start moving beyond that, because then you're crossing more into the juicy target sort of space. There's a reason why Medibank was hit. There's a reason why Latitude was hit. They contain lovely data that makes it easier to scam information or extort money out of people.
Yeah, that's clear, and I think that's where, first of all, you've got to make it hard for them, and
Yes.
then they move on to an easier target. But it's not about, but it's also just about protection. The amount of value in your brand, in your personal data is
You've hit the nail on the head there with the comment on making it harder.
Yep.
As an example, a house I used to live in, we had security screens on the front of the house. We had a crim safe screen door on front, 6-foot colorbond fences, and a German Shepherd.
Yep.
My neighbor had a sliding glass door that didn't lock properly and no curtains on the front of their house. Which house is the burglar going to break into? Which one is lower risk for them to get in and out faster? Because that's what they're looking to do. Get in, get what they want, get out.
Yep.
Same thing applies to cyber.
Yeah, no, that's it. Just make it more difficult for them, and
Yes.
also I think I guess one of the points you did mention to me, that sometimes the mindset of a small business is, look, I'm not really a target. I've got no value, I think you're saying. So talk to me a bit about that. And you see that probably regularly, I'm assuming.
It's the two most regular comments I come up against when I'm working with smaller organizations is, we're too small to be a target, or we have nothing of value. I'll talk to the nothing of value thing first. If you say you have nothing of value, why are you running and how are you running a business? Running a business is hard. If you want it to be easy, go back to being an employee. That is far easier. And that's no begrudging people who want to be employees. It has its own challenges, but compared to running a business, there's a difference there. But you have staff data, you have client data, you have payment data, you have your processes, your procedures, your intellectual property. That has value. And the reason it has value is, if I took that off you tomorrow, how much are you going to pay to get it back? Or are you going to go, oh, yeah, too hard, I'm done? Now, I get that might be the approach you're taking if you're over it, or if you're a day away from retirement. But otherwise, you're going to go, oh my God, I can't pay my mortgage. What do I tell the wife, the kids, the friends, the family, the staff, the customers, the vendors, the people who rely on you as a revenue stream? And I don't mean that to diminish anyone's position in the business, but you are providing revenue to other organizations to do stuff for you. They want your custom.
That's right.
So you have value. So saying you don't have value is a disingenuous argument, because you do. It's just you're not seeing it the same way an attacker sees it. They're going, oh, cool, I can stop Les running his business. Will he pay me $50,000 to get it back? Does he have $50,000 is the other thing they'll go digging for once they're in the systems. But when they say the other one is, we're too small to be a target, that's also not an accurate statement. We talked earlier about throwing mud at the wall. You're looking to stop that mud from sticking. We talked about also the threat actors, they're corporatized. They have KPIs. They have a return on investment. They have to spend an amount of time and an amount of money to attack you. So you want to make their ROI for attacking you so bad, it isn't worth the effort. Now, we mentioned specific organizations like defense and R&D and medical and kid data and finance data. They have a different approach. They will spend more money and time because they are specifically trying to break into that organization for a specified purpose. But 80, 90% of the attacks out there, it's spray and pray. We'll throw mud, and if we hit someone, cool, there's $20,000. There's another 20,000, simply because the organization we're too small to be a target.
Yep.
And a lot of this stuff, you don't have to do the tens of thousands of dollars to address these problems. A lot of it can be done with existing configurations. There's a lot of cases where you wanted to license some additional software, like, as an example, antivirus. It's not really that good anymore. There's an entire class of software called endpoint detection remediation or managed detection remediation, EDR and MDR, that are so much better. But there is still so much money from the software writers' side to sell antivirus.
Yes. Yep.
because it's an easy
again,
sell.
because that's what people are aware of, right?
Yeah.
And it's about awareness of what the threat is and what the protection from that
What
threat.
exists, yeah. But there's so much you can do as a small business just to even harden up. I'm not saying you go the whole hog. There is
You don't need to
there is
spend
no,
enterprise
yeah, exactly.
level stuff.
And that's one of the things I do. Like I don't really play in the enterprise space. I've got the enterprise knowledge, but I've taken that and I specifically work with the SMEs going, right, what can we get to address this in their space without dropping the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions per year on this stuff? We can find the cost-effective solutions. And a lot of it can come down to tools that are already built into the Office 365 package, or going and getting something like Sentinel-1's EDR, or making sure your backups are done correctly. Because if an attacker breaks in, their first target is going to be what's called your authentication service. So when you type in your username and password, your computer talks to the authentication service and goes, is Les who he says he is by way of this password? Yes, he is. And let you in. Their first target is that. Their second target is going to be your backups. Because if they can take over and destroy or damage or lock out your backups, you're more likely going to pay, because you can't go, oh, it's all right, I can just restore from backups.
Yep.
So that's where you need to look at having configurations where you've got what's referred to as a third-party offsite offline backup.
Yes.
Which is, it's something that isn't part of your network. I've got a client here in Brisbane where we replicate their backups to a data center in Brisbane from their offices. And then once a month, the backups are replicated down to the site in Sydney contacts the backup system here in Queensland and pulls the data down. So if an attacker connects into the backup system, they don't even know that that point exists in Sydney.
Yeah.
And that is, apologies for the accuracy, it's essentially the oh crap button.
Yep.
If everything is completely destroyed, we go, okay, we've got backups from a month ago. Yes, it's inconvenient. It's going to be a problem, but it's that or no business.
Yes.
Which one is the preferable outcome?
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like best of, but that's, I guess, your contingency, right? And
exactly.
I guess, so let's talk about then risk. If somebody does get an attack, what sort of costs are involved? Because I think it's like that's a bit of an unknown as well.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a flexible question. I'll answer as best I can. One of the first things I'm doing when I'm speaking to clients is I'll have to see their cybersecurity insurance policy and the questions they provided to answer that. There's a couple of specialist brokers I work with in that space, and they are really good at what they do because they only do cybersecurity insurance.
Yep.
You can get it from your general broker, but your general broker is also selling cybersecurity insurance. Are they a specialist? There are some who are very good at it, but I've chosen to work with two. That's all they do. So one, what does your policy cover and things like that? So if you have cybersecurity insurance, your first point of call is to ring the emergency number they have there, and then they will activate resources. Now, say, for example, you don't have this. So you're going to need to reach out to what's called a DFIR, or Digital Forensics and Incident Response firm. Prices I've seen there start from $2,500 a day. I've seen some as high as $6,000 a day, depending upon the resources and complexity, how much is needed. And that'll generally get you 8 hours of time. Now, if this is a critical incident and you want to keep going, well, there's 24 hours in a day. So you can do the math there. And you're going to need them for a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks to get to the bottom of what's going on. There's also going to need someone to manage that and coordinate all these bits and pieces and provide the reports back. They're going to tell you how they got in, what they touched, what they accessed, and how to recover. They may even provide some recovery support.
Right.
But their prime concern is how did they get in and how do we get them out?
Yes.
That's their primary focus. To fix the hole that the bad guy got in through, you're going to need to speak to your internal IT team, your managed service provider, or someone like me who'll put you in touch with other specialists who can help you like that. So you're going to want at least 20 grand to cover that, and they're going to ask for that up front because it's not uncommon for these things to be a business-ending event, and that is not a guarantee of recovery. It is a best effort. This is why cybersecurity insurance is so important. Now, I'll call out, I am not an insurance broker advisor. This is not insurance advice. But I cannot stress the importance of having it, because it is it's the oh crap button. It also covers you for things like you have a social engineering fraud. So somebody tricks your accounts payable person going, hey, our banking details have updated. You need to pay the $30,000 to this account. And they go and do it. Your policy may have coverage for that as well. Right. It may have coverage for an insider, what's referred to as an insider threat, where basically saying a staff member gone bad. So staff member does something dodgy with the computers. Let's say they extract all of your records from your CRM and your contracts with your clients and provides them to a competitor.
Yep.
Again, the policy may, depending on who it's written with, provide some support and remediation activities to basically come back from that. It is a very valuable policy. It's up there with your, I treat it as being up there with your PI, your PL, and your general business coverage, because it's so important, and they're not expensive.
Well, I think
you're set up
too that the biggest point here is you don't have, a lot of people don't have these conversations. They don't even think about, potential sale of their IP, or their data, and understanding and thinking about it and bringing it to awareness is something that's very important. So good conversations to have.
I readily acknowledge that in the room when I'm speaking with like product teams and marketing teams, I'm the person who's wearing the tinfoil hat.
Yep.
I have to take the point of paranoia and worst possible outcome, because, well, that's my industry.
That's risk. That's
precisely. I have to go, oh, what could go wrong here? But that's how it is. But I look at not having these cybersecurity controls, be it backups and insurance and multi-factor and password, all these things that lift the bar a little bit, as like driving your car with bald tires, no airbag and no seatbelt, because everybody else is the problem. I'm a good driver.
Yeah.
I can adapt to everything. It's like,
and nothing's going to happen to me.
Nothing's going to go wrong. And let's not account for the skippy that comes bouncing out, or the person who's playing on their phone when they shouldn't be.
Or somebody who intentionally rams the vehicle. So
spot on. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, there was as a slight segue, there was a set of incidents a while ago where an individual on a motorcycle was intentionally colliding with the side of cars and exchanging details. No major damage to the bike or the rider or the passenger, but the intent was to get a copy of the driver's license, name, address, date of birth, driver's license number. And then from there, they can go on and essentially do identity fraud. There's a company which I do some work with where that was essentially their origin story. And they went, we need to do something to prevent this.
Yeah.
But those types of things happen. So people will intentionally collide with vehicles to do data collection. It's usually a stolen vehicle they're colliding with you with, but slight segue. But you're right. You need to have all these things in place to mitigate the risk. So would you allow your offsider in your business to sign off on dumping the entire money from your bank accounts with no second signature?
Yeah.
Or would you insist on a second signature? Would you insist on like everyone's got those little dongles to do their authentication into the bank?
Yep.
They exist because they reduce risk. So all we're asking to do is look at that from a wider perspective.
Yeah.
You've done it for one specific control. Let's widen it out so we can lower the risk of your business, and you can go on to become the next big titan of industry and have thousands of employees if that's where you want your business to end up with. But you need to have the right controls in place or bad stuff happens.
Yeah. And like you were saying before, you wouldn't leave your doors open in your house and unlocked, right? And what we're talking really about is locking the doors. And especially
on a similar analogy there, you've got a wonderful front door. It's a 2-inch thick oak door. You've got a crim safe mesh, but right next to your door, you've got a 2-foot bit of glass window. It's great your door's secure, but what's stopping the bad guy putting his fist through the window and just reaching through and unlocking it? Yes. And it's like, as an example, great, you've got good passwords. You haven't got multi-factor. You haven't got patching. Like, that's essentially what's happening there. it's not just a one piece and we're good. You can't just put a glass dome over things and go, oh, great, no one can get in or out. It's that looking at all the things that could happen and taking a reasonable and risk-based approach to it. Like, there are certain technologies which, like, there's a technology called data loss prevention. So that basically stops people internally from making data available to other people when they're not authorized. So you might have access to your HR files because you work in HR in your organization, but that doesn't mean that Bob or Jane in finance is authorized to access those folders, and they can't navigate to them on the file server.
Yes.
There's nothing stopping somebody in HR emailing that to them,
Yeah,
or putting them in a different location, but things like DLP can prevent that. But again, you're looking at, that's a fairly large and complex system. So in a 10-person organization, I'm not going to recommend that. You start cracking 50 people, yeah, we should think about it. It's becoming up there. At the 10-person, are we teaching people? Do we have multi-factor? Do other passwords we manage properly? Like, don't write them down and stick them on your phone or under your keyboard or in your top drawer. Like, that is so dangerous. And even worse, please don't put them on an Excel sheet on the drive somewhere.
Yep.
Like, if a bad guy breaks into the system and they're scanning the file servers, the first keyword they're looking for is password.
password.
The second thing they're doing is they're looking for 16-digit strings,
right?
Either in 4444 or 16, because
Yep.
well, credit card numbers.
Yep.
And also don't store credit card numbers in that way. You'll get in trouble by the credit card industry.
Yes.
The fines there are not small.
Right.
So, but there's all these things that we can do to improve the posture of an organization and just reduce the risk, because like, there's no point spending $100,000 to protect 10,000. The cost needs to be proportional to the risk. And if we're going, it's a business ending event, what is your business worth you? Okay, we can then justify spending a few grand a year on proper backup configurations rather than, oh yeah, I take the disk home each night. Well, okay, disks don't like vibration. So while you're driving, the disk is going to be vibrating and you might not get all your data back when you need it. So,
yeah, and that's it's like what you've got to put it in perspective, and that's
exactly.
really and on top of that, you know, you lose that disk and somebody can get into it. It's just
Precisely,
this
whole,
yeah. What I guess really what I like about what you're saying is the way that you talk and educate, and I know that you've done this in multiple occasions. So how can somebody, I guess, connect with you to understand more of what their position is?
Yeah. So one of the things which we do quite regularly is we run audits and assessments and work out where they are. And depending on the organization, that depends upon the impact of the cost implications there. But one of the things we've started doing a lot more of is we've been running security awareness training workshops. Normally it's a 1 or 2 day engagement, depending upon the size of the organization. And it's usually one day to design the training package that's tailored to your organization, if you say more than 20 headcount, and then deliver it across to 1 or 2 sessions. Because we try not to have more than 10 to 12 people in the room at a time, because that way you can keep people engaged and you always want to have questions. The other one we've started doing recently is we've put together a package specifically for micro businesses. So the sub 20 headcounts or 10 to 20 headcounts, where it's a standardized training package. And I've partnered with a managed service provider to actually do some configurations on the devices and the email systems to at least get some of the basic controls in. And there's one of the worst things I've seen is when people share passwords.
Yep.
So say, for example, you've got 3 people in your organization and they all share a password, and someone sends an email to a client going, oh, you can all go get stuffed. Cool. Who sent that email? You've all got the password. You can't tell which one of your staff actually did that. So this is why things like separating accounts and making sure that the computer that people are using, they can only do what they need to do. There's a thing called administrative rights. So you need to get a password to install stuff. Most micros and smalls don't have that set up. And so what that means is when hostile software hits the computer, bad stuff happens because it can now work as an administrator. It goes, oh, I can do whatever I want. I can talk to whatever I want, and runs rampant. So partnering with that MSP, and they do that technical work. and do the configuration. So we're working well with them, but yeah, we focus on the audit, the advisory, the governance, the strategy, and the training, just to remove and reduce the risk. And yeah, we work pretty much through Southeast Queensland and recently out of Melbourne.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
So yeah,
Excellent.
looking to get to Sydney soon, but that's a bit harder. But yeah, they can reach me either on LinkedIn, Luke Irwin, IRWIN. You can also reach me at lirwin@aegiscyber.com.au, or you can go to the website, which is aegiscyber.com.au, and just lodge a contact request, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Wonderful. Yeah, well, we'll put all your details in the information anyway. But mate, I really appreciate your time, because I think it's a topic that isn't discussed openly as much as revenue and growth and all of this sort of stuff. But protection and risk is a major part of business as you're growing, and I think people should be more conscious of it, especially cyber.
Exactly. And I forgot to mention before, we're always happy to sit down for half an hour, and just have a general conversation about the things you should be thinking about at no obligation, just to go start thinking about this, please, and just make them aware. More people take it seriously, the less likely harm's going to happen. And and probably the other thing to probably mention, the Privacy Act is changing soon. That's another conversation for another time, but please be aware there's big changes coming there.
Yeah, and I think that puts more responsibility on no matter what size business you are, and really stresses that we need to be aware of security and other people's, because we all hold, no matter what business size we are, other people's data.
Yes,
part of what we do. Yeah,
and you've got an legal obligation to protect and manage that appropriately.
Well, thank you so much again, Luke. I really
appreciate
your time.
Yeah, happy to help.
We'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to No Limits to Success with Les Moir. We hope today's episode has sparked new ideas and motivation for your own journey. Remember, the only ceiling on your success is the one you create in your mind. To connect with Les's guests and explore their work, check out the links in our show notes. And if you want to dive deeper into the No Limits mindset, visit our website at nolimitstosuccess.com.au for exclusive content, resources, and upcoming events. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a review. It helps others discover the show. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and redefining what is possible. And remember, there are no limits to success.